Hi everyone, welcome to another Disney Infinity tutorial. Today I'm going to show you how to create an invasion. It's my D-Day landing type effect. And I want to base it on the Force Awakens. You know at the beginning of the film when the First Order come landing in and the ship doors open and fly out and all the troops come out. So I want to replicate that type of effect. So what you'll see here is we've got Poe in his nice jacket and he's going to chat with the old man. And you're now going to get the effect of 3 ships coming down. Now I've chosen the western backdrop because I want it to look hazy, so you're trying to work out what's that in the sky. I didn't want it to be clear, I actually want it to be foggy, going, what's this coming down from the sky? The sun's blocking the view. And as these ships come in, you'll see the ships land. As they come into land, they actually slow down just before they touch. They actually slow down, and then, as you'll also notice, dust appears as they hit the ground. And when they hit the ground, the ramp opens out, and then the Stormtroopers come charging out of the ship. So this is the effect I want to show you how we do it, and they will come running in and they'll now charge the base. And as Poe, we've got to try and save the village. This took a while trying to get used to how to get the ramp to appear, and I wanted that same effect, and this is the best I can get it. Any other ideas, let me know. So you'll see here Poe now going and they'll start attacking. Once the troops run in, I've then got a massive battle on my hands. And I haven't mastered Poe yet with all his moves, so I don't think I'll last too long at this. Now I'm going to go through every instruction. So I know that the Disney are not going to allow you to upload or download anything new as of the end of September. So what we're going to do here is we're going to show you how to build every stage of this, so then you can build this yourself. And I strongly recommend those that haven't got various play sets, they're very cheap at the moment. It's worth getting so you can unlock those, because there will be a time when the play sets will go up in value because they'll be very hard to get hold of. At the moment they're going dirt cheap, so get yourself a couple. So you can unlock all the various tools that are available. The best one by far is still Rise of the Empire. So as you'll see here, I'm still fighting away, trying to hold off all these things, and I'm not going to last too long. Didn't do too bad though. But that's it. That's what I'm going to show you here, is the effect of how we get the ships to land, the ramps to open, and the troops to come running out. Now you'll also notice that I've pretty much done this all in one clip. And that's because I've had a couple of times trying to perfect this, and this is one of the reasons why it's taken long for this clip to come out. I nearly made it without getting killed. I thought I did quite good there. You know, no lives died at all up till this point. And spoke too soon. Right, so let's start on a completely fresh toy box. So here we go. There's Poe in his cool jacket. And if anyone's wondering, I'm using the power disc just to show it. So what we're going to do is we're just a blank toy box. There's nothing here. We're going to build every single stage. So the first thing I'm going to do is change the theme, and let's make it into desert straight away. So point down to the ground, use your triangle on the ground, and I'm going to choose the Tatooine desert theme, and I'm going to use the square button to set theme. So if I use any pieces, they'll be set in as well. Right, the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to extend the area. So I'm going to go to my activity toys, and then I'm going to press me L1, and I'm going to look at the terrain section. And I'm going to add in a number of boxes. Now I always play around to get the right one. I don't like the big chunky box. I keep that in the screen, but I'm going to see that little section there. The reason for that is that when I finish with making the toy box, I put all my controls underneath it, so I like to leave a little gap. So I'm going to use 4 of these, and I'm going to place these on the box on the side here. And you'll notice I didn't have to change the colour because I've set the theme, so they're all here on the screen. Right, so that's now our landing space. Now we've got to do where the ships are going to land. So the other toy I'm going to switch it to now, so go back to the toys, I'm going to switch to these square blocks. And as you're aware, I use these square blocks as reference points to help me plot the ships so they're all in the same place. So what we're going to do is this first box is going to be where the ship actually lands, actually touches ground and hits the space. So I'm just trying to find the area where I want, and within the area I've got 3 spaces. So I place it down. I'm going to put 6 boxes in. So theoretically there's the centerpiece and then there's 5. And I'm basically going to make a cross shape. So I'm going to put 5 at the side. So in thread leading they go in rows of 6. So there's 6 there, and then they go across the other side. So it works out a cross of 5 with the centerpiece being the 6th piece. Okay, and then I'm going to go to the front, and I'm going to add another 5 in here. Now these square blocks we're going to get rid of, but it's how you enabling me to line up all my routes. So that is where the ship is going to land, and we'll have all the tools and the effects that go from that particular part. So what I'm going to do is go back to my toys. I'm going to go to Toy Origins, and I'm going to go and pick the Rise of the Empire, or Rise Against the Empire. And the Rise Against the Empire has the best toys, so if you haven't got it, get it. It's dirt cheap, so it really is good. So what I'm going to do is I'm lining up my Star Destroyer across the whole map, so you can see it's in line. I'm moving it across, and then I'm just going to raise it up. Because where I'm going to place the ship, I'm going to place the ships directly behind the Star Destroyer, so you can't see them, so they look like they fly out the Star Destroyer. So I've just got it up at an angle. That's where I want my ships to appear. Right, now I've got my Star Destroyer. I'm now going to go and change back to my list. I'm going to go back to Unfiltered, and then go back to my Creativity Toys. And what I want to do now is going to use the Path tool. So if I go back along here, get my little Path tool. Right, now we're going to set this up from where the ship is going to fly from the Star Destroyer. So it's going to be behind it, hidden out the way. Now when you set this up, make sure you can't see the map. So I'm going to hide it up at an angle so I can't see the ground at all. In that case, if I'm down on the ground, I shouldn't be able to see the ships. So I'm going to place that in line so I'm realising I still can't see the ground at all. So that I'm in perfect distance, which is great. So then I just press my X, plot my first point, and then I'm going to bring the ship down from underneath it. So the ship's going to come down from this bottom part, and then I'm going to bend it down and drop it across. Now as I go across, I'll put a number of points. But basically I'm going to try and line it up to my cross. You'll see I'm trying to keep it down so the ship's going to fly down here on the screen. Now another important point, try and keep them as straight as possible, because I want it to look like the ship lands and doesn't go down onto like digs into the ground. So I'm not going to choose where I choose the ship to go along orientation, if I can say that properly. So I'm just going to try and keep this lined up all the way down towards the cross that I've got. And on the way I'll keep pressing points as I move down. But when we get to the cross, that's when the points matter. So I'm still lowering it down. It should be keep coming down, and I should making sure, I just keep checking that I am descending down so the ship doesn't come down on the screen. You can make it rise up and down if you want. So as we come down to our last point, you'll see we keep coming down here on the screen. We get to our first box on the grid. We'll get there slowly. Here we're getting there. Right, so we get to the very first one. And so on the edge of the very first box, right at the edge in the middle of the box, I'm going to click once there. Okay, now I don't click anymore. I move right across to the center and straight down to the ground. Now move it down so it's right through at the bottom of the ground. That's the last point. That's where the ship's going to land. So I press X to confirm it, and then I'm going to press circle to come out of that tool. So that's got the route. The ship's going to fly down and land in that particular part. So the next bit is when the ship lands, I want the dust to appear. So the two side panels is where the path I'm going to use for the dust to expand at the side. So what we're going to do now is going to go back to the centerpiece and draw the path for either side of the ship for the dust. And that's what's going to be triggered when the ship lands on the screen. So I'm going to move my pointer back in the middle, but this time I don't want to go on the top, so I'm just going to go to the side of it. So it's just at the side, click once on my X button to register the point, and move it all the way to the end, press X again to set it, and then circle to undo that one. So that's one side particle going to happen. And then I'm going to have the other side, click the X button again, and do that all the way to the other side. So that is where the smoke and dust looks like it's going to appear on the screen. Right, now the next bit is actually going to be where the ramp appears. Now, in all the times I was trying to get this to work, I had the ramp fly with the ship all the way. Now you don't need it. Now follow the step here. In this case you'll see that I'm putting the point at the top of the box, not at the bottom, at the top. And I'm actually going to put in each center, I'm going to put a little extra X in between each of these items. Right, now when you get to the second to last one, you're going to stop there, you're going to move it down one, and you want it to be on the end but in the middle. So I want it to go to the end this time, not in the middle, and in the middle section. This is important you have that line there on the screen. Press X to confirm, and then I need it to go further down into ground. So what I then want to do is count 3 down. 1, 2, 3, and 7 across. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And then I'm just checking that it's straight, and that is the perfect angle for the ramp to appear at. Now, like I was saying, I set this up so the ramp didn't have to follow the ship. The ramp only appears once the ship has landed, and therefore I didn't have to worry about 2 lots of path, which comes in quite handy. Now that we've set up all the paths for the ship landing, I can get rid of the boxes. So I can now delete all these square boxes that I don't need. And it just guarantees that I've got a set there. So remember, it's just a cross with 5 either side, the centerpiece being the 6th one. And I just delete these out. Just be careful you don't delete the lines, but these are now all removed off. It just guarantees that I plot them all the same places, because sometimes I forget when I'm counting as I go across. Okay, so that's that particular part there on the screen. So that's the route we've got. Okay, so the next section we're going to look at. So the first basically happens as the ship comes in, the dust appears on the ground. Okay, so what we're going to need is we're going to need a couple of tools here that trigger this item off. So I'm going to need to get my creativity toys up, and let's go to my toys now. So if I go straight up to press R1 to X out, I'm still in my creativity toys. I'm going to go all the way across now. In fact, no, I don't, because I'm while I'm here, I might as well take my locators. So let's put my locator. I'm going to need 2 locators. And that's going to move along those 2 paths as the dust appears, so it gives you the effect that the dust is blown away. So as I mentioned the word effect, I'm going to need the effects generator tool. So I'm now scrolling across. I need 1 effects generator, and you'll see I'm just putting it at the side. You can leave them all that close by to start with, and at the end we'll hide all these out the way. So we'll have 1 effects generator, and I need a logic gate. So where's my logic gate? There it is, and just 1 logic gate. Sorted. Okay, so now I've got my logic gate on the screen. So staying in spark mode, what I'm going to do is now with my effects generator, I can say, right, can we point this to the locator? So I'm going to go all the way to this locator and say I'm going to connect it to this locator. Okay, I'm going to do the same to the other one. So go back to my effects generator, I'm going to go new locator connection, and I'm going to connect to the second one. So those 2 items are now connected to that 1 effects generator. Now I'm going to link them to the path, but before I do that, I'm going to change the properties of the path. So go on that path, go to properties, and I'm going to change the speed of that to 50. You can make it slow if you want, but I want the dust to look like it's going across. So I change that to 50 now, so I don't have to chase after that screen. And come out, and I'll do exactly the same on the other side. Yeah, so change the speed of that 50. You'll notice I'm not changing any other settings for those side panels. Now that I've got that done, I can now connect those locators to that path. So I can go on to the square button, new path connection, and link it to the path. And it will start moving across. Now I don't have to worry about the timing issue, because I'll show you that in a second. So new path connection, and connect that one across, toy box path. By chance I got that to be identical, but it's not the reason. Don't worry about that. They don't have to be set at the same time. So that effect is all correct. So the question is, when do I want the smoke to appear? And that's where we get to our first dot here. When the ship arrives at this dot, which is at the end of that cross, I want to trigger off these items. So I'm going to go on that dot. When point reached on path, what I want to do there is I want you to put a signal into that logic gate. Okay, so can you input a signal into that logic gate? Now that logic gate says, right, now I've got it in, what we're going to do? So what we're going to say is, right, new logic connection, on output, what I'd like you to do is, I'd like you to start the effect. So what you're going to do is, can you do play once, because I want it to continually do it, just play once, and I'm going to choose smoke, and I'm going to choose the large area. But the reason why I use the logic gate, I need another effect. I need to reset those dots, because we don't know where those dots are. So I'm going to do another option on new logic connection, on output, and I'm going to point to each path. And what I'm going to say is, can I actually just reset that path? So can we do reset and play, which will move the dots back to the edge, and they will expand out on the side. So I now need to do it to the other side as well. So new logic connection on that logic gate, and I'm going to go to on output, and I'm going to say reset and play. So the 2 dots will be together. That's why it wasn't important that you didn't need to sync them together, because the system will do that automatically anyway. So the ship will fly through, hit that dot, fires the logic, and the dust will appear. So that is now set up. That is fixed up on this particular screen. Now this is a tricky bit. Now, like I said, I didn't want the ramp to follow the ship all the way through because it got very complicated when I tried to do that. So what we're actually going to do is we're going to put two logic gates in here. Right? One is to do with the ramp, and the other one is to deal with the troops when they appear. So you need to put two logic gates. Now, when this game loads up, we're actually going to have the ramp appear and disappear. And the reason I want it to disappear, I want it to disappear out of the ground. Yeah? So the ramp is going to appear on the screen. So I only want it to stop when the ship has landed. So when we get to the ship to this particular point, what we are saying here is that the ship is on its way. Therefore, I'd like you to close these two gates to let me know that we are going to stop the ramp. So on that point, when we reach the point, I'm going to say, can we close the gate? Okay, so that one is for the ramp, and so when we reach that point again, so the point triggers off the dust cloud, it also closes the two gates. Okay, I'll go into here, on this option, close the gate. If you don't use these logic gates as closed gates, you are going to have a problem when they come through, right? Otherwise the ramp's going to be in the screen. So what we're going to do is we're going to attach a ramp on here, and that ramp will go across down on that item. Now when you first load it up, yeah, the ramp will go off through the ground straight past and hide out the way. So I'm just going to go to my simple toys, and I'm going to go and find you a ramp on this item on the screen. You'll see when I put this on how the ramp disappears on the screen. So put the ramp in, so place the ramp at the side. Yeah, I'm quite happy, that's about right. Now switch back to Spark mode. Okay, what we're going to do now is I'm going to go to change the actual properties of it first. So I'm going to go to the triangle button, and I'm going to use the Echo Base ramp. I quite like that one. Where's the Echo Base? That's the one. Right, so change that to Echo Base, and I'm going to set the theme, so if I use other ramps, they'll all be set on the screen. Right, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to link this ramp to the path at the side. Now as soon as we do that, whoops, I've gone to pick it up again, done the wrong one, sorry. Oops, I've come all the way back out, so let's go back into Spark mode and redo that again. Sorry, Po. Right, so back to Spark mode. So if I click onto the flat bridge that we've got, I'm going to do square button, and I'm going to do toy box path. I'm going to connect it to this path here. And I'm going to connect it there. Now as soon as I do this, this is how it will load up in the game. The game will load up and the path will start to move. So while it's moving, before it disappears, I'm going to just go and change the properties of that object. So I've just quickly selected it again. So I've connected the path and I've quickly selected it again, and I'm going to go to the properties of that route. Now when I go to the toy box properties, there's two things I need to change. The speed I'm quite happy with, that's alright, but I am going to have to change this setting. So I want the ramp to bend with the slope. So in this case I do want it to change orientation. And this is important, otherwise it'll mess it up. I'm going to play this so it goes once. I'm changing it from loop to play one way and then stop. Okay, it won't continue to play, and I let go. Now what happens when you load up the toy box, the ramp will appear in mid-air and then disappear out the way. Right, so that will happen when you load the game up. By the time it's loaded up, before you can get around to see it, you won't have noticed. Now when we get to this point, that's when I want the ramp to stop. But obviously when we load up the game, I can't have it stopping until the ship is on the screen, and this is why I need the two logic gates. So we've have to make sure those logic gates are closed, and they're only closed when the ship comes down the other ramp. So when I get to this point, I can say, right, new logic connection. Yeah, can we input a signal into that gate? Okay, now what we're saying is that if that signal is blocked, then we know the ship is coming down, and then we can switch it off. So we can do a new logic connection. Yeah, right. If the input is blocked, then we know that it has been triggered off, and therefore what I want you to do here is I want you to turn off the path, and that will stop the ramp. Okay, that'll make it disappear and finish. So that now will stop the ramp, so the object will appear. But when it loads up the first time, because there is no ship, it will disappear out the way. Okay, and that is all triggered on the first dot when the ship comes down. Okay, now when the ship does actually hit the ground at this particular point, right, what I can do here is, when the ship new logic connection, when point reached on path, because we tell it to play once only, I can tell it to restart. So actually, can you just reset and play again? So the ramp, instead of going backwards, will go start back in the middle of the ship, come through, and this time when it reaches the point, it's been triggered, and then will stop and then stay closed at an angle. And I have to say, I played ages trying to get this effect to work, and I had the ramp following the ship, and it took absolute nightmare. But this is the best way of getting this ramp to appear. And I've been trying to get this, as I say, I've been trying to work it and tweak it. I'm really happy the way this works. It's quite straightforward and simple. So that's all you've got to do on that particular point. Now, when the ramp gets to that point also, we want troops to appear. I want them to fly up, and I want the troops to start coming running out on the screen. So what we're going to do now is I'm going to go back to my creativity toys. And I'm going to need my part toy, I believe. There it is. There it is. Right, so the ramp's going to be here on the screen. And you'll see that you can't get it directly on the ground, which is fine. So have it just above, so it's hovering. Don't have it flat on the ground, just a little bit hovering, because there will be a ramp in that section. And what we're going to do is we're going to have the troops obviously follow this path when they appear, and they're going to run into you. So I'm going to press X, and they're going to run through the list. Now when they get to the end of the path, I want them to stop and stand there and finish on the screen. So I'm just going to click on X, but like I say, don't go to the ground, just keep it up in the air. So press X, and then they're going to run all the way to the end of the screen. So I want a bit of footage running across the screen. Now, one thing I noticed, just before I get to the end location, I'm going to put an extra point in. So I'm going to put a point here. So press X to put a point in, and then move it a little bit further and put a second point. Because in my test, what I find is, even though I get this route to play once, the very first set of troopers kept on looping back to the back of the screen. I don't know why, it was a glitch. So I put an extra point here which gets rid of the glitch. So if you find your troopers don't all appear at the end and they jump back to the beginning, just do those extra points. So you'll notice there I've done a gap of 2 between those items. Before I get to the end, make sure it's straight, not an angle. I do 2 points, click once, and then click again. Yep. I think sometimes if it's too busy, it doesn't react quick enough, and the troopers will then reappear back at the beginning. It will lose that effect. So that's why I need the 2 points. So like I said, 2 points across, because the ramp is actually quite wide, and run them all the way across. Get to the end, 1 square, and 1 square there. So that there is the route the troops are going to appear on. Right, now the other thing I'm going to need is I'm going to need a locator. This is where I want the troops to appear. Now you'll see here I can fit them flush. Be careful with this one. I thought it would be too low, but if they're up in the air they actually fall, and then they fall on the ground. So I actually want these, you'll see these right at the very bottom. Now you may think, actually I'd like them a little bit higher up, I want them coming and run out of the ship, but you can't, because they ended up appearing on top of the transporter, so they do have to be right at the very entrance. I couldn't get them any lower, which is a bit of a shame. But there I've got my 3 locators where the troops are going to appear, and the effect, like you say, as you saw, it looked quite good. So I now need some other logic. Okay, and just pay attention now here on the logic, how I get these to work. First of all, I need another logic gate. Okay, that's what triggers the enemies. Okay, so I'm going to put a little logic gate here, and I'll just put it at the side. Right, I then need 2 time delays. Right, one is for the second wave, and the other one is for the third wave. So I get rows of 3s. Right, the more waves you want, just keep putting another timer in. So if you want more waves, so remember, if you have too much, you block up your memory on your screen. And then the other thing I need is the enemy generator, not the wave generator, the enemy generator, because that otherwise I can keep respawning as many troops as I want. So I need 3 of these. Don't get too bothered where you place these, because I mentioned it a couple of times already. We're going to hide all the tools once we've finished the toy box. Right, so this is how this logic works. We've got 2 gates. One of them is closed, and one of them actually triggers the enemy. Now, when that gate is closed and we get a signal to it, that's when we set off these other 3 tools that we've created here on the screen. So I'm just going to go to the first logic gate, and I'm going to say, right, so click on there, when input blocked, I'm going to connect to each one. So on there, when input blocked, can I input a signal into this logic gate? And that logic gate is what sets the army running. We're also going to do another one saying, right, when we click on this button, when input blocked, we're going to set the timer running. That time is going to be set for 2 seconds. Yeah. And we're going to do a third one, when that input blocked, so new logic connection, when input blocked, we're going to set this next timer running. Okay, and that's going to be set to 4 seconds. Okay, so that's what sends those items off. Now, that logic gate is triggered when the ramp gets to this point here. So what we're going to say is new logic connection, when point reached on path, can we input a signal into this particular case? And like I say, when it loads up, we don't want the enemy to appear. So as the gate is not been triggered from this point, yeah, because the ship hasn't landed, when it loads up and the ramp appears, it doesn't actually do anything on the screen and therefore doesn't trigger these actual items off. Now I mentioned these time delays, and I'm going to go to the properties of those. So I'm going to time delays and I'm going to change them to 2 seconds. Okay, and the reason 2 seconds, because they come out running, it gives enough time to appear. Now this one needs to be 4 seconds, because the first wave comes out, it'll be 2. If I wanted another line of enemy, it would be 6 seconds. If I want another line after that, it'd be 8 seconds. So I'd have more items appearing. So like I say, we've only done 3 waves on here. But like I say, when you point to that timer, when that delay is complete, I want to input another signal into that logic gate. And when that time is complete, square brackets, I want to input a signal into that logic gate. And so if you wanted more lines, you'd have to put more time delays with a greater time and then keep inputting the signal into that logic. So that will trigger that one, and then that will trigger that. So that's the route that it's going to go through. Every time a signal goes into that, the system will generate a line of 3 troops. So what we're going to do now is, right, new logic connection, on output, I would like you to generate a wave. So now which ones you want to choose. Now we're going to use the Force Awakenings. And we'll use the first order. So again, new logic connection on output, go to the next one, Force Awakens, and then first order. Cool. Now that's going to generate 3 enemies on those pads, which we don't want to do. So let's just do the last one. So I need to tell them to generate those on the actual locators at the appropriate place. So I'm going to go to this particular point here, square button, and say, right, can we choose the new location connection? And I'm going to connect that to my spot here. And I'm going to go back. Same thing again, new locator connection. And connect that second one into the middle one. And I go to the last one, new locator connection. Now I'm finding when I space these around, it's better to space them about slightly so I can see the distinctive line that's appearing, and sometimes I find that quite handy. So I've now got those 3 items coming on, so they're going to appear on that list. So I'm going to go back to the first one now, and I'm going to use new path connection, and I'm going to link it to the path tool. So I'm going to say I want the troop to run on that particular path. And I've got to do it again for each one. Now, like I've used spaceships there, you can use sailing boats if you wanted. You want pirates to arrive or something like that, Game of Thrones, you want troops to come running out of a ship, you could do it on a ship. So it doesn't have to be a spaceship, it could be any tool you want. So that's now linking out on those 3 and coming off that screen. Right, so what we're going to do here is we're going to go to the properties of the path tool. And what we're going to do is we're going to change the speed of it. Now I found the most appropriate speed was around about 60. And that affects with the 2 second delay. So if you're going to speed it up or slow it down, then you might have to increase the delay on each timer. So I'm going to change those to 60. Yeah. And I'm going to do to each one. So each one of these I'm going to change to 60, otherwise 100 is just way too fast. Well, in my own personal opinion, you can do whatever speed you like on here. I'm going to change that to 60. That's changed to 60 as well. So they're all done now, change to 60 and come on the screen. So the troops come out and they start running down. So they'll get one set of 3, then another set of 3, and so on coming down that list. Right, I've also now going back to the enemy item, and I'm going to go to the properties on here, and I'm going to change the style because I don't want it looped. Okay, I don't want the item loot, so I've gone onto the properties of the enemy wave generator, and I'm going to click onto the actual option, and I'm going to say, can I play once and stop? Now I did have them all go to the end of the path, but they kept on bumping each other in, they like stacked each other up. So I'm just doing the play once and stop option anyway. So I changed the option to be one so they don't go back and go to the end of the screen. Yeah, so if it was just one set of 3, you wouldn't have to close the gates, they will just run off, end and attack. But I'm changing them all to stop at the end, so let's change them all 3. So go down to properties of those. Change all 3, so it's not looped, it's play once and stop. Now, as I don't want them all crashing back into the back of each other, what I've done is when the first line of waves travel down that line, when they get to this first point here, I'm going to stop the entire gate. Now, if I did it on the last one, it didn't seem to work, so that's why I had a little issue with that. So that's why I put an extra point in. So I'm going to do new logic connection. When point reached on path, on that end point, I'm going to switch that gate off, which means every troop that's on that line will then stop a few seconds and then start attacking. So same with the next one. So on there, when point reached on path, switch this one. So point reached the path, go all the way back, and switch that item off. Now be wary, this is not a bit of logic that's going to be able to be reused again and again, because we're switching the paths off. So if you want to then set, after the 3 waves come out, set another 3, you will need to make sure you switch the path tool back on. Yeah, so they need to all go switched off on the screen. Right, so we've now got that. So we switch all those off. The troops on that line will then stop, and they will then wait a few seconds and attack you. So we've now got the logic of the ship coming through, and those troops will run down there and fulfill those on the screen, which is not too bad. Right, so the question we really got to ask now is what triggers the ships to attack us in the first place? Okay, what affects all our troops running down here? So what we're going to look at doing now is in this bottom section here is we're going to build our little village. Okay, but I want like a well, because I think there was a well in the Force Awakens. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go by choice and get my landscape. So go to my terrain objects. Let's find this small square, smallish square. That's the one, right? So place these in here. Right, so fit that flush. Okay, now the next one I'll change that to a well. So if I go across into the cabin options, you can unlock this in the toy store. So there's the well. That's the well they're going to come charging to, and I'm going to have my actor stood by the side of this. And if I go back to the other boxes, move those up, fill that across. And because I set the theme, I don't have to reset them again. Now it's remembered it, so I can put those items across. Now I may want to, now I've got that landscape on, I may want to put some extra land, so I'm going to get a larger square. That's not, I don't like the thick one like I mentioned, so that will be okay. And you'll see here that my map is quite small, and it will generically grow. So don't go for the big maps. I've tried this so many times to do a massive map, and then it just lost the whole effect anyway. So right, what I'm going to do now is I want to go to my actors. Let's flick through this. So you see I've changed my actors and decorations. Now this you have to be quick on, and you'll see I have a little problems with this. And also I found that when I first did this, and I've tried this a couple of times, occasionally the actor does disappear. For some reason, when between my saves, I lost it. Now when you put your actor down, you need to then jump into Spark mode and tell him not to move about. So you click on it to land on him, and then I need to act quickly and select him. But I can't seem to be able to pick him. It pings, it's too close to where I want him to appear. And then he starts walking, and then once he's got the walking in, the system gets confused because it remembers where you placed him, and it remembers where you told him to stand still, so he then carries on moving. So you've got the option to switch him to stand still on it. Now, like I say, that should be all you need to do, and when you save it should happen, but I kept on missing this, and it kept on causing me grief, and he was in the wrong place. So you'll see here I'm just going to delete him, or try and move him into another position. I can't move him into the area now because he's in the place. But as soon as I click him on, so I've told him to stand still, right, let go, he starts walking. You shouldn't do that. You should stand still because I've set that property. So let's delete him out again. But just beware that when you save it, you may find that this guy disappears again. So if you do, you may have to drop him in. So let's try and be quicker this time. So I'm going to drop him in. Right, switch to spark mode. Quickly select him. Come on. In fact, he's not too bad. Yep. And I'm going to go to properties and tell him to stand still. In fact, he can stay there. I'm happy with that. I'm not going to be bothered. He can stay there at that particular moment. There's got to be a better way than moving him around, I have to say. He's not. He keeps moving across on the screen. No, he's there. Right. Can I move him forward? If I click onto him, he's going to walk again.
Hello, my friend.
Right. I'm giving up on that point. I'll leave him here. I'll try again. It needs to be quicker. We'll come back to it. Let's do the logic we need to do for this particular part. So now I've had confirmation from the Disney support team that any server tools will cease to work in March. So just a pointer, if you haven't created your own matrix brain that I've shown you in one of my other clips, make sure you've got that built, otherwise you will not be able to create any adventures. Right, I'll come back to my wand. Right, let's go back in, let's go to my creativity toys. Right, so let's bring in the toys that we need for this particular part. Okay, we need, let's go across, where is it? Dun, dun, dun. Right, the first thing I need is going to be logic gate, because I need to switch this conversation out. The logic gate is going to need to be closed because I don't want to keep sending the ships again and again, because once they've landed, they're finished. I'm also going to need my where is it? My context button assigner. This is one of those tools that will stop working in March next year. So keep a look on my clip, because my clip on how to create these tools after the servers go down has not been viewed by many people. And if you don't get that made, you will not be able to create stories after they switch them off. I also need a dynamic trigger. Cool, get that one on there. And I obviously then need that one, and I also need the context history. So let's go back. Now the text creator, and that's the other tool that will cease to work as well. Right, so they're the tools we need to trigger these particular items off. So let's put in some text. We'll go into here and we'll go to properties. We're going to change the text here. We're going to say basically the First Order have found us. We need to get out of here. Put some sort of comment on. Now while I type that in on the screen, just be aware, right? And I'm going to have a little rant again at Disney Infinity again. Sony cancelled Drive Club, one of my favourite driving games. I love Drive Club. Some people hated it. I absolutely loved it. They cancelled it. They sacked them all, and they closed it all down. Now, I wasn't happy about that, but guess what? They managed to set it up that Sony is still supporting Drive Club. They are bringing out Drive Club VR. They've got the poor swines to do a VR version before they sacked them all, which they're releasing when that comes out this year. But the actual Sony still supports the servers. Okay, now Disney the bigger should still support the servers. Don't get it. It can't be that much expensive, so I find that very annoying. And another reason why I think Disney are just going to lose more trust with their game. Now, sorry it took a while. I'm actually typing the text in as we speak. And also, I hope you appreciate this has all been done in one clip. And the reason for that is I have done this thing so many times trying to perfect it just right. I could do this in my sleep. So I think I'm almost there. And we've got text in. There you go. It's for checking it. And it says that the First Order are coming. We need to get out of here. All right. Now I'm going to change the delay of that one, so I want it in a few seconds. Yeah. Right, so that's the text message that's going to appear on the screen. Okay, so this here is the trigger option. Yeah, the area where we come in. So we're going to go to the connection in. I'm going to do new actor connector, and I'm going to link it to that actor. So the tool is linked to that particular option. This is my dynamic trigger. I'm going to go to the properties of that, and actually have to say it's not the toy, it is the actor. Even though I've just selected the actor, I still then have to move it and say this dynamic trigger is working with that actor. And I'm going to change the radius down to 5, which seems to be about right. Okay, so that's the 5. So that when I walk close to him, this will trigger this option off. Okay, so I'm going to do a new logic connection. When we enter that area, okay, by the player, and it's the any player, as long as it's a player, I don't need a trooper. I want to put in a signal now for this logic gate. So can you input a signal? Okay, so when inputs come in, that's great. Now on output, because it comes on output, it's a new logic connection. On output, we're going to go to our content button. Yeah, and we're going to activate that button. And it's the trigger and player that it activates on. So we now go to the property of that particular option. And what we can say here is we can put in the word chat. And this is the thing that doesn't work after March. Yeah, so we put the word chat in, so that will appear on the screen, so they'll get the word chat on that particular item, and that's the thing that I'm going to change the time period it appears on the screen. So I'm going to user define it for about 3 seconds. Now we can do the logic on that option. When we confirm that button, so we can press that on the option, right, when you actually press the button, say I do want to chat to the individual, we can then say, right, can we do the player, triggering player, and can we go to our text option and say display text 1. Now we also got to say is, hold on, you've done the conversation now, so I need to close it. So what we're going to do here is we're going to do new logic connection, and what we're going to say is when pressed, I want you to close the gate. So triggering player, can you close that gate? That means it won't allow you to go back in and ask the same chat again. So that will stop that conversation between that two. And that now is our chat resolved. So this section here, when you press that button, so he'll talk to him, he'll go through to the gate, he'll press the button, and now we need to trigger off the actual item. So I need one more tool, and this is our famous tool. This is the tool that sets off the whole thing in motion. So we've got all the logic set, and I'm just going to move this right down to the very end because I need it by the Star Destroyer. So this logic gate on its own is what triggers the ships to attack, and everything else will then will be then triggered due to the path that they take. So let's go all the way back. So when you press this button, yeah, so when you press that button there and you say confirm, that's when we're going to send the ship. So new logic connection. We've done the press to do the text, but this time when we press it, we're still going to show the text, but we're going to do a new one. We're going to input a signal into the logic gate at the end. Okay, can we input logic gate there? And that's it. That signal there says, right, now trigger the ship. So we're going to say, when that gets a signal, I want you to launch the other particle. So what we need to do now is we're going to the very last stage. We're going to go to the very end, all the way back to where our little ship is here. And we're going to place our ship and connect to that tool. But first thing I need to do is then when I connect the ship, I don't want it to start moving straight away. So I'm going to switch the actual option off. So I can switch the ship on. That's the ship I'm going to use, my rebel ship. I'm just going to place that at the side. Okay, but before I connect it off, the first thing I need to do on that ship is I need to switch that path, because if it goes on straight away, it's going to go on the screen. So I'm going to go to the settings of that, go to properties, and I'm going to turn it off. Right. I'm also going to change the speed of it because I want it to fly that quite quickly, and the largest speed I can have is 300. Yeah, but I am going to have to switch it off. So it's going to come in 300 speed, flying quite quickly, and it's going to be off on the screen. That's it, off on that item. So now when I add that gate to it, it will trigger the item. But before I do that, before I add the spaceship, got a bit carried away here. When you go down to this logic gate down the side, keep all the way down. Right, when you actually input that signal, so that says, right, we've had the chat. So what we're going to do here is new logic connection on output. Can we tell the other action item to play? It's line on there. Well, we can't tell it to play because it's switched off. You actually not tell it to play, you have to tell it to switch it on. So can I switch the actual item back on? Because we don't want the ship to load through, and I've done that specifically because if that ship moves through, you won't be able to save it. So I'm now going to connect that ship to this path. So it's clicked on the ship, point to the path, and connect to it, which will then jump to that screen and it will be stationary. We've changed it to 300, but I don't want it to follow the path and the orientation. So I'm quite happy to go through. So if you look at the properties on there, you'll see here on Stormtroopers properties, I'm not going to change that one. I'm going to leave that off because I want the ship to come down and it will then give the impression that it's landing. But I am going to have to change the movement style, and it must play once and stop. So the movement style of this ship must play once and stop. So that will trigger it off, and that's it done. Ship's going to come through and fly through. Now the last thing I have to do is slow the ship on landing. So on this path it will be 300 all the way until we get to this checkpoint. Okay, and when it gets to that checkpoint there will then trigger the dust and trigger the other options. Right, so that's the point I actually want the ship to start slowing down. So I'm just going to go to the properties of that point. So you actually go to the properties of that particular point. Now this is a percentage, it's not a speed, and I want it to be 100. Right, but that's not that's 100%. So I'm actually want it to be 33%. So because it's a third of 300. So that's it. Now if you just do that one, it will then get to that point, slow down and speed up again. So at this point I want it to stay at 33%. So I'm going to go to this point at the very end, go to properties and change that to 33%. That is not 33, it's 33%. So I've set the whole ship coming down this path to be 300. So I want a third of it, so it actually sets it to be in 100 on this part. So between these 2 points, the ship will slow down to 100. When it reaches those points, it will trigger the dust. Those particles go across. It will then trigger the path. That path will then hit those 2 items. The gate will stop. It will then trigger the enemy. The enemy will then be triggered to appear in those locations. And then they will all travel down, get to the end and stop, and then end up attacking me. We have now set our logic up. Now you'll be dying to test this, but make sure you save it first. Yeah, make sure you physically save the thing first before testing it, because it's a one-way mission. It doesn't reload, it comes in and lands. So once you think you've got it working, save it, test it, and then reload it back up again. Now what I'm going to do here now is that is all the logic you need for that spaceship to land. Sadly, I need to repeat the same logic now for another spaceship because I wanted 3. Okay, so that is my whole clip to get the spaceship. So what we're going to do now is we're going to go back and rebuild the whole thing again, but just for the ships. I don't need to do the conversation, it's just the ships. And if you remember, it's a cross with 1 point with 5 either end. So my question here, I want it slightly offset from the other ship. So I've dragged it back slightly. If you look where the dust particles are on the other ship, you can see that's going to land. So this one's going to land a little bit behind it. So I click my box in and I'm going to move them around. Now I'm not going to go through and do the whole thing again. You can just rewatch the clip. But the only bits you need to worry about is that you're now just going to do the dust, the enemies and the triggers. That is it. You don't have to do the conversation because the conversation is set and that will trigger all 3. So I'll show you a quick review of all this once I've got this all set up. So I will carry on building it here. So as you'll see now, I've set up my 3 ships. Yeah, all 3 ships hidden behind them, trying to keep it so you can't see it. And I've gone through the ships, a couple of paths, and they come flying through. And I've left all the logic on display so you can see them. So I've got the set 1, and I moved the ship further up. And you'll see my 3 bands of strips coming through, and the dust coming on that list of the screen. Okay, that's my second ship, that's where the second ship arrives, and that's where my third ship. So they're all set up, ready to come in and start charging through. And if you play the clip, you just rebuild everything apart from the conversation, because I only need the conversation once. So this is like, and also you'll see I've added a little village down to it and a couple of little hills. But when we have that conversation over there with our guy, it's going to come all the way over here, and it's going to send this signal. And this is my key point. And if you look closely, you'll see 3 bars. because all I have to do there is just say make sure switch the other route on and switch the third route on, so the same trigger will launch all three of them, and that's why I don't have to have the other guy again. So I'll now hide all those items again by sticking them underneath the base. So I will now move all those items and hide them underneath there, not the paths, just the actual tools. And we'll just have a quick review. So let's just rerun it again, just for the full effect. So we'll speak to our Obi-Wan. That triggers the ship. Probably another cool thing which you're probably going to mention is doing this at night. This will look quite cool at night if you had flashing lights coming through. I've done it in daylight with slightly haze, so it tries to make a bit vague what are these ships coming through. But the ships all come down, and by not having it on turn, they keep in line, so it looks like it'll landing. Dust appears, which is quite cool. And purely by chance, those other two seem to land exactly the same time. One first, one next. It's better they don't live at the same time, just slightly different, then it looks all staggered, and then they come running out. And there you go. How to create a Stormtrooper invasion. Hope you find it of use. Now that Sony have allowed me to create longer clips, I'm hoping to try and show you more things so you can see the whole thing built together. So I hope you appreciate that. I'll make sure my next clip doesn't take as long. Apologies for this one taking just as long. I did say you're going to get a load of new clips coming through. I've got some more ideas still to come, still stuff to show you. So keep liking the pages, that all helps. And I'll get another one to you as soon as possible. Many thanks for watching. Catch you later, guys. Enjoy creating your invasion. Bye for now.